morning, everyone, and welcome to the virtual breakfast sessions. My name is Larry Sashin, and Fred and I have put together a great panel for you today. And before we speak about anything else, let's talk about the people who are paying the bills. First of all, expense reduction analysts. Man, there is cash hiding in your invoices. If you need more cash, and you have invoices, call it Ed Flanagan and Expense Reduction Analysts, and they will help you out. And uh, Produce Experience, the finest in tropical produce, herbs, and salads. Produce Experience, if your restaurant needs top quality, call Produce Experience. Now, our panel, let's go around the room and introduce yourselves. Brandon, why don't you start?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Brandon Close. I own Chipper Dog Barbecue Sauce. We're out of Charleston, South Carolina. We do three different types of, we do a mustard base, a tomato base, spicy barbecue, and then we have our dry rub.
Okay, and a catering business, don't leave that out.
We do have a catering business as well.
All right, thank you, Brandon. Jimmy, say hello to everyone.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jimmy Thomas. I'm the owner and executive chef of Levita's Restaurant located in Harlem. And yeah.
Okay, thank you. Julio, say hello.
Good morning, everybody. I am Julio Garcia. I'm business development for Produce Experience, which is a wholesale distributor of fresh produce. We cover an area from Baltimore to Boston.
Okay, and Fred.
Fred Clashman. I'm the editor and publisher of Total Foodservice. Morning. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone, and thanks for waking up and being with us this morning. We're going to talk about a subject that is not near and dear, but is heard by all of us. Can't go by a day where you don't hear long COVID. Most people think of long COVID, how it's affected people. But long COVID, how has it affected food service? Look at 2019 and look at today. And, it seems that restaurants have looked basically the same as they were until you dig deep and you see that there have been many, many changes. Brandon, I want to start with you because you have had the most profound change in your restaurant career than anyone else sitting here. Why don't you tell us about the long-term effects of COVID in your business?
Yeah, so just a little bit about our journey. Last year, we opened up a bottling facility for our barbecue sauce, and we opened up a quick service sandwich counter around that. And really the effects of COVID, if you will, or whatever is going on with the economy and the world right now, it just didn't really work out. We didn't have the highest foot traffic area, even though we were on a really busy street. So a lot of our business was coming off of the delivery services. And I think that's a major change from pre-COVID is how many people are using the delivery services now, and the profit is they crush you. Depending on the service, whether it was Grubhub, Uber, or DoorDash, we were giving up 40 to 55% of our profit off of a delivery. So a $17 or $20 delivery, we were seeing anywhere from $8 to $11 of that, which our sales look great, but at the end of the day, the money wasn't going into our pockets really. So I think that's been a major change is the takeout and the delivery service post-COVID.
Mm-hmm. Got it. Julio, they talk about, people being strangled by the supply chain. Your Produce Experience made a lot of changes during COVID on how they procure their herbs and salads. Can you talk a little bit about that and what COVID initially did to you and how you've overcome it?
Initially, when COVID came, we like everybody else, we pivoted. We doubled down on our logistics and our supply chain. I think the long-term effects of it has been, drivers were at such a, they were in such high demand because of the supply chain that drivers, what they were making went, considerably higher. And, so once you paid somebody, say, a third more of what they're getting, even the long-term effects for us is those haven't come down. So freight rates are still high, even though gas and diesel is low. What they're charging, what drivers are charging, we have within the 3 companies that I run, we have about 25 trucks, 26 trucks, which means 26 drivers. All of them got raises during COVID, and now everything more or less is back to normal, but we're just spending a whole lot more money on to do the same job.
Interesting. You and Brandon, though you have very, very different types of businesses, both affected by delivery charges. Both affected by delivery charges. Jimmy, can you expand on that? What is transportation and delivery done to your business?
Everything is more expensive, period. Just, including transportation. What transportation has done for me, actually, I now have to go out and get some of the product myself because, the cost is a bit more. But, I make do. I don't see a huge change in that, but I see more of a change in the cost of the items themselves, which probably has transportation costs tacked on to that. So, yeah, it affects me.
All right. What are you, it's interesting. I spoke to somebody the other day and he said his restaurant was back to normal. And I said to him, so your restaurant is back to normal, right? Are you still paying your dishwasher $11 an hour? And he said, oh no, oh no. Are you still down 2 people on your staff where you have to double up? People have to double up on their jobs. He said, oh yeah. And then I said, and I don't remember you having a $24 hamburger. So, back to normal is a relative thing. Can any of you, can you expand on what was normal in 2019 as compared to what it is today? And not just prices, because there's a lot of stuff.
Right, Professor Feldman, go ahead.
Oh, hi.
Jump in.
Yeah, thanks. I had trouble getting on. I want to ask a question to the group about normality. I'm from a university perspective. I'm a professor there, and I've in the food systems program, and I know a lot about what our students are doing. Number one, we see on campus that our food pantry has gone ballistic, and there are lines out the door because students can't afford to pay for food. So my conversations with the students are they're not going out to eat either. My question to the group is, did you see any changes in regards to normalcy, in regards to demographics? Have the demographics changed since COVID about who's populating your restaurants? Are the younger people still going there? Because out in New Jersey, where we are, my feeling is that the students can't afford to eat out anymore.
I think I'd like to address that. I think that's a great question. And it's a great question because it kind of, talks about the whole situation of, it's a broader, it can kind of talk about what's going on when it comes to, the restaurant industry and the food industry in general. What I've seen in my experience, younger people are still going out. They're just more careful about what they eat and if they're getting a big enough bang for their buck. So they still want quality. A lot of people are looking for really good quality if they're going to spend that kind of money. They may not frequent my restaurant as much as they used to, but when they do, they don't mind spending the money, but it's more calculated on, okay, what do I get? And it's a higher quality. So did the demographics change? Not really. I mean, you don't have a lot of people, doing the whole Instagram thing where the people are coming and, trying to make your place a hot spot. But it trickled down a little bit, and that's in my experience. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
So I have a question for Julio. We've had this discussion. So the Cisco guy comes in, the sales rep. The restaurateur is trying to manage costs. So the Cisco guy, the restaurateur opts for the house brand of Cisco fries, for argument's sake. You and I have had a discussion about things like yucca fries. So is creativity the solution in this case? Or is a better price the answer to this? In other words, does this start with what the quality and sources are for food? And that's where you have to look at this.
Well, I think Jimmy's right. I think I think the demographics, I think younger people, and I have two kids that fall within that millennial age, and they do want more bang for their buck. They're looking for quality. They don't care to spend $24 on a cheeseburger if it's amazing, right? So I think it holds our feet. They're putting our feet to the fire, right? They're making us give a better quality stuff. Like we launched a label called Celeste, which was the best basil on the planet. We bring it from Hawaii. It doesn't burn on your pizza. It's more expensive, but we're having better results selling our top quality herb than we are selling an inferior one, even though it's cheaper, because people are starting to understand what yield is. During COVID, everyone went to the last little square of toilet paper. So we understand what yield is now. So that's a good long-term effect, at least for the produce industry, is that restaurateurs, I know Jimmy, I guarantee you, if he takes a box of potatoes or sweet potatoes, 40 pounds, he wants to use all 40 pounds of them. He doesn't want to be throwing 5 pounds or 2 pounds or any of it. So it's holding us accountable for producing better quality stuff, even though it's more expensive. Yeah, it's more expensive, but wow, is it good?
Okay. Brandon, in your business, in your hot sauce business, how are you dealing with rising prices? Are you doing the shrinkflation thing, or are you just raising prices? How is it affecting you?
We did raise prices for the first time in 3 years. I feel like we were one of the last holdouts to do that, thankfully, but we finally raised our prices about 10%, which again, everything from the freight to the cost of goods has gone up. That has come back down a little bit with our latest order that we just got. I'm starting to see from our co-packers the price down to where it was pre-COVID, which is nice to see finally. But yeah, we're just really careful about where we source everything, and we shop around, and with everything from where we get our mustard or our garlic to where we get our freight. So we use a great freight broker that helps, and everything from our shrink wrap to our labels, it is gone up. So we've been lucky that we've joined the SFA last year, and then we've started doing the fancy food shows, and we've made better connections and are able to source stuff better. But it's been tough.
How about you, Jimmy, with portion size? And like you say, people are not only looking for quality, but they're looking for volume.
Yeah. And, God forbid if I try to make my restaurant like a buffet style, or where it's like now it's really big, because I can't do it. I still have to stay within, what did I open the restaurant for? I opened it because I wanted to have like a good portion size and good quality. So there was a question that was asked, and the question was, is it creativity or is it pricing? And I think creativity is in the pricing, right? So you're creative if you're able to take a certain ingredient and lower the price, or create a dish out of it where, it's not going to cost as much and you can yield out a bit more. But what I've been doing is giving people just a decent portion size. They're not going to get not going to be able to walk when they walk out of the restaurant. It's, a decent portion size, but also a richer experience, richer flavors and things like that, where it can hold them. And, it's a good enough size where we can have, make a little bit of it on it.
You know, it's interesting that there's an assumption that the problems with Red Lobster, with the potential filing of Chapter 11, were all a result of the volume that was being served. What does everybody think?
yeah.
Is that the issue, that we have this population that absolutely has to eat at a certain volume, and we can't afford to do it profitably? Like, what is the issue?
I think part of it is over COVID, everybody learned how to cook. They had to,
Yeah.
and so those maybe I'll
So you have a new competitor.
Yeah, maybe like those simple, Applebee's dishes or Red Lobster dishes. Everybody knows how to make those now. And that's where the creativity comes in, and that's where chefs have had to step up their game. And I think that's where you're seeing the cream rise to the top now.
Yeah.
But we live in Charleston, and I'm sure it's the same in New York. If you're outside of Times Square, like the chain restaurants just don't survive here.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
it depends on the chain. There are different chains. There are now fine dining chains out there. So, it depends on the chain. Peter Herrero, unmute, please.
Good morning, everyone.
I just want to make a comment, and then Peter, I want to have a question for you. Interesting. When we first went back to eat after COVID, the first thing you noticed you were outside. Okay. And then when they moved you indoors, you sat in a separated area and with a barrier in between you and the table next to you. Okay. Like, the bugs don't go around the barrier. That piece of plexiglass was going to keep you safe. And the third thing you noticed was, did the food get bigger or the plates get smaller? And, there are different tricks to the trade. Now, I know, Peter, you have found 1,000,000,001 cost-cutting features in your restaurant. Can you go through some of them that you were able to keep your quality up, but, don't waste anything?
Good morning, everyone. The hardest part is our industry has grown so much. I don't think there's any broad strokes anymore other than categories. I mean, labor's labor, energy's energy. One of the biggest problems we're having right now is with insurance. For the last 3 years, it amazes me. Our volume, we're almost back to normal, but with the 20% increase in pricing. But our insurance, you know what? Your values are all 10% higher. We're not changing our rates, but ladies and gentlemen, our rate is based on our values of building, business, the whole 9 yards. My insurance has gone up significantly, and we're negotiating okay, you say the building's worth so much a square feet, got it. And they taught us, if you take the building, shake it upside down, whatever falls out is equipment, and they insure that differently. Across the board, we're learning so much from so many other industries of size, of changing product items, of energy. Our biggest challenge still is we could open up on Mondays and bring in another $250,000 in volume. Can't find quality staff. I've actually had long-term customers. My wife is on the floor. I'm on the floor. We have managers on the floor. Everybody's on the floor. And I said, food took a long time. Okay, can everybody not come in between 6:30 and 7:30? Can everybody not get on the phone and say, hey, lunch, 12:30 to 1:30? Before 12 o'clock, 12:30, we're dead. After 1:30, there's half dozen people in the building. We'll do 80 covers within 35 minutes. And you know what that does to your staff, that does to your kitchen. There are so many cost-effective ways of doing business, but I got to tell you, I'm amazed. We're fighting so many fronts. I almost feel like information overload or decision fatigue at times. There's projects that we're working on I can't get to, and management and the staff are doing their best. With that said, we found a lot of different ways of making new food, serving new food. We're still closed Mondays. We still close an hour early. We still open up a half hour later. We're introducing different products in different places. We're focusing on covers and per person average. but it's really what's hurting us the most is just cost across the board, Larry. It's brutal. It's every direction you see. I agree with the panel. Things are coming down, but two or three things are coming down. Labor will never come down. And there's going to be a shock when AI takes over, and we don't need that many people. It's going to be a real shock. And I think it's a shame because our industry was the gateway for so many immigrants to become entrepreneurs and wealthy. I hope that answered your question.
Yes, yes, yes. No, but one of the things that we're concentrating on is costs. And, we're talking about kitchen people and we're talking about managers. Ed, please unmute yourself, Ed Flanagan. There are, I mentioned it at the beginning and it never it's been a better segue. Ed, tell people about how you find money for people in their businesses.
Thank you very much, Larry. So everybody's complaining about costs going up and there's not much you can do, but what we do is we help our clients make sure that they're getting the best possible price. We negotiate on their behalf. We have no relationship with any of the insurance brokers or any of the food vendors or any of the packaging vendors, but we have people that are experts in those various areas that know how to negotiate because they know as much of the supplier's business as they do as the supplier does. So we're able to negotiate. We have benchmark data, and we can deliver savings 90% of the time. And if we don't find savings, we pat you on the back and say, hey, you're kicking butt and there's no cost.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. We were talking, we had a conversation last week about Gen Z. And this is the wave of not only people, but the wave of money that is coming into our markets right now. They're a different kind of animal than Fred and we baby boomers were. How do you service and make money off of people who don't drink, who are very careful about what they eat? How do you service somebody like that and still make money? Jimmy.
I see the way I look at it as far as like Gen Z, I think they know how to eat. They grew up with, a lot of social media that shows you good quality food. So I look at it from a positive perspective. They know how to eat. They know what they want. They want what they see on the screen. And, hopefully I can serve it to them. We have it on the menu. I think that honestly, with Gen Z, I think it's more of like cutting through the BS and just knowing exactly what they need to order, where they need to order, and being more adventurous where, maybe the older generation may not go out of their way to get like a special or different meal, like a Creole meal, where I find like, some of the younger people are a bit more adventurous and they'll go out and they'll try your stuff out to see what it's about, and hosting is still there as far as like Gen Z, as far as like people, with the cameras and stuff like that. But I think it's kind of leveling out a bit more. People are just taking pictures of food, but they're not making like these big grand things about it,
Okay.
anymore.
Right.
That's just my opinion on it,
So what are you doing to expand your businesses? We've talked about a new normal, a next normal, that it has different. How do you now expand where you are? Because if your sales are, as Peter said, almost to where they were before the pandemic, but your costs are higher, how do you expand your market to meet those demands so you can keep your doors open?
You mentioned COVID. I know we were talking about COVID and how COVID affects businesses, right? So I was doing a lot of catering and I was, vending at different events during right before COVID. And when COVID hit, no one wanted to even be next to each other. It was crazy. Everybody was scared, wiping down like cereal boxes. It was just nuts. And I didn't know what was going to happen. Opening a restaurant after the pandemic taught me a few things. And one of the things is that scalability and having good quality food and having an understanding of, okay, another pandemic could hit us, something could happen. What are you going to do now to be prepared? Where maybe before the pandemic, some restaurants or some groups didn't really think about the things they think about now because they don't really have to. You could have a spot that's in especially in New York, that's in a popular area, and people are going to come anyway, right? And once the
How do you
pandemic
get them
hit,
to come to your place as opposed to somebody else?
quality food, quality food. I mean, sometimes you make quality food and the restaurant still shuts down. But the only thing you can do is quality food, and you use the technology that's out there, social media. You could do word of mouth. Have a good website, and post as much as you can. I suck at posting. I need to do that a bit better, but that's what I do to get people to come to the restaurant, because people will come if you have a good product and if you're in a good area.
Okay. So, Brandy, I was just going to call you. You say what you're going to say.
Well, I think that's how you have to reach people now is social media, and whether that's Instagram or TikTok, Facebook a little bit, but not as much anymore. You got to have, I don't know, this genuine. You got to be genuine about yourself too, and that's kind of what we're going through right now. Is we kind of pre-COVID, when we launched, we tried to keep everything corporate and to look nice and to look professional, and we're learning that that's not really what works on social media. People want to see, that selfie of, you with your camera, and see you, not the corporate shine of it. They don't care if their camera's bouncing or if there's noise in the background or anything like that. They want to see the face of the business. And I think that's been, I don't know if that COVID changed that or if that's just technology has changed or.
I think COVID set the social media.
Julie, do you have a question?
Yeah, I think Brandon, you cracked it. And we talk all the time about sharing the stories behind your brand.
Yeah.
Consumers have always had this need, this desire, this hunger to want to know about the people and the places and the provenance behind the product. And I think it's a huge opportunity in front of us.
Yeah.
We've got this whole society that want to be conscious consumers. We call them conscious consumers. They want to know where stuff comes from. They want to know how it gets to where they go. That's what's going to differentiate you. You've got to, first of all, you've got to understand the power you have behind your brand. It's all, we call it all the P's, the people, the places, the provenance, the product. And then you've got to systemize your storytelling so that every time whatever platform you put it on, every time you talk, it's more than just the price and the location and what's on the menu tonight. It's all about the behind the scenes. We talk about authentic, being authentic, and that's, we've got a society out there gagging for authenticity.
Joyce, you have a point? I'm sorry, Julie. Go ahead, Joyce.
Go ahead.
So we've seen a revolution in the restaurant over the years. Everyone would go in and be amazed at the dishes that were presented, the food styling. Fred and I have been getting a lot of pitches about restaurants that now have to entertain in a very different way. And that's putting games in the restaurant, or, we're back to having music and sing-alongs and other things. Is the restaurant industry going through another revolution of, it's not just about the food anymore. It's not just about meeting people. now, is the entertainment factor taking over? That's my question.
It's before we go on, if you remember what Josh Tupper said the other day when we were talking about his restaurant, and he said it's all about the experience.
Right.
All about the creating an experience for people. Go ahead, Brandon. You got your hand up.
Yeah, I think my generation and below too. Like we didn't go out to dinner when I was a kid, but you go into fine dining restaurants now and you see toddlers. It's insane to me, but that's something that's changed as well.
Okay. All right. Experience. Talk about experience. I know, Jimmy, talk about the experience when people come into your restaurant. What's the hook? Why do people come besides the quality of food? What draws them in?
Well, to piggyback on what one of the ladies mentioned, Julie, you have to have a story. The experience, your story is part of the experience. So it has to be consistent. When people come into my restaurant, they know it's a Creole Louisiana style restaurant that's somewhere in New York, right? It's in Harlem. And people want those little special touches. So the experience is basically that I have good service, right? You're greeted well. The menu is a reflection of that story. And it helps you get comfortable, and it kind of stands out of the crowd of more of the franchise type of restaurant. And I think that's what's good with the small mom and pops. We have that flexibility to give those nice little experiences and those stories.
Okay. All right. So how are you creating buzz about your catering business, Brandon?
Our big thing is we do a lot of in-person events with the barbecue sauce, and that's where we mention that we cater as well. We go out and Heritage Fire Tour or food and wine events. We just did an Art on Ion event where we were an artist with our artisan barbecue sauce, and then we were also the chef in the house where we served bites to eat and that kind of stuff. So we do a lot of in-person events. We are really bad at I'm really bad at the social media part of things. I'm starting to learn, but that's how we get it, whether it's a festival or whatever it is, local events.
Charles, you have a question?
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt, but I just want to comment on the entertainment. I noticed we're out in New Jersey. We have the American Dream Mall, which is kicking out other retail operations and replacing them with entertainment operations. So, I think that might be a trend for the future. But also, I wanted to ask the group, is there a difference since COVID from the cityscape to the suburbanscape? Because out here in New Jersey, what I've noticed is people are really fixed and staying at home now, and they have to get out in a car and go travel to a restaurant. It's a little bit different than what's going on in the city. I noticed that a lot of restaurants aren't doing the lunch business and during the week business either. So there are different strategies for cityscape and suburbanscape.
Peter, you want to pipe in on that?
Got to unmute, Pete.
Thank you. Sorry. I would say we're in suburban in White Plains, New York. So it's a little bit of a city during the day, 300,000 people and 60,000 people at night. Pretty much well off. We are seeing, you can see in the morning when you go to the trains, the parking lots when they're dead and when they're busy. I haven't seen them busy in 4 years now. I do see so many people with the remote that's really hurting our corporate business. Like our corporate catering still has not bounced back. If you're not in the office, I'm not spending, $50,000, $100,000 to do a barbecue if you're not coming into the office. You're going to come into the office to have a party. So we do some work in the city, and we have seen almost a bipolarization of everything is a niche now. And to everybody's point of Entertainment, perceived value is huge. You're going to see McDonald's. I think it's McDonald's is getting crushed right now, but Pizza Hut is doing well. I think it's all to everyone's point, the brand, the perceived value. What's the experience? And it's funny, my experience is totally different than anyone else's, but we have a semi-organic cafe in hospitals, in 3 hospitals. Those numbers are actually going up. They're spending more, and they always complain that the price is too high because our competition is an in-house cafeteria that sells Starbucks for $1.50. I can't compete with I can't compete with that business model. But I got to tell you, there's no playbook anymore. I don't know if anybody has a playbook. We have 5 divisions, and they're all doing different things. And I'm glad you brought up Ed before, Larry. We've been trying to work with Ed now for 4 months, and my staff is like, boss, we only have so much bandwidth. It's a good idea. We want to get there, but we haven't had a real catering season, a real sales season for the Great American Barbecue Company, for Cape and Berry Events, or the CV Rich Mansion, or Hathaway Hall in 4 years. We just, at the last minute, we found a great salesperson. And the only reason she was available, because her business, she's an entrepreneur, was crushed by COVID. So she loves the support and she loves, but I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
I'm just seeing, depending on the town, the city, the day, it's all different today.
Yeah.
Hard to forecast.
I think what you have to do is take the old ideas and throw them out the window. And you look at the
I disagree. I think you have to take the old ideas and redefine them and match them to your customer base rather than sitting around worrying about your social time spent on social media posts. I couldn't disagree more.
Well, but there are certain, I think it's a mix between what you said and what I said, because let's look at it this way. McDonald's and Burger King, they all had things going for them. And now all of a sudden, supermarkets are putting in pizza ovens, and they're opening up casual dining in the supermarket. Look in our area, we have DeCicco's. DeCicco's is putting in beer halls and pizza ovens in their supermarkets, and they're doing a booming business.
Right.
Okay. Now, where are they taking that business from? So what you have to do is, like, maybe what Fred said, not throw the old ideas out, but take them and redefine them. So,
that happens to be a great example. So the local pizzeria from whom this business is being taken, 40 years ago, they used to send out a magnet with the high school football schedule, and it went on the side of the refrigerator in the house. So, or they sent a postcard that had some kind of a 2-for-1 or a free dessert. So maybe it's time you go back to the basics of marketing again, or you do a video, you do some kind of video. In other words, there's got to be a solution to it to keep that market share.
I think people want to go out, as far as, like, I know you asked a question about, how is it changing things. People want to go out in the city, as compared to, different spots in the suburb. I know from my experience, people want to come out, and we went through it through COVID, especially, in New York City. It really, it affected the whole, world, affected the whole country. But I know here we went through it. So they really want to come out. So when they come out, they're like, okay, what do you got? They want quality, and that's from my experience. I don't think those things need to change. You serve good food, you have good quality, you have a good story, you're okay. You make sure that your restaurant is scalable, meaning menu, just in case something happens. You may have to do a bit more takeout than you did before, but scalability. But from what I've seen, a lot of people do want to come out, and they are expecting you to bring them some kind of quality so that they can stay.
Okay. Julio, you have a question? Comment?
Comment. So 2 things came up and I wanted to answer. So you wanted to know how the restaurants were dealing with it. I'll tell you from a food vendor's side of it, they're trying to beat up the food vendor. That's one of the things. Food cost is still a big expense, and they're making it harder on us, to compete or to make the margins that we need to do, that we need to make. The last thing I just wanted to say, I was at, who's a customer, Fred? I was at Baldor Bites down in Lower Manhattan last Wednesday, and I listened to Dan Barber from Blue Hill, and he was speaking to a lot of restaurateurs and vendors and, all the customers that Baldor has. And he said that you have to create a communal, exciting space, and you have to tie that in with quality products. And this guy had everybody, you could hear a pin drop in that place when he spoke. And I think that he's, the better restaurateurs have been able to do that. They've created a space that's inviting. I look at Jimmy's background, I see all this great music. I hope you play a lot of this great music at the restaurant. Oh, awesome.
And vinyl too, yeah.
Right. You're doing something different. You're creating a nice environment. You're in Harlem.
Yes.
I'll be there one day this week. Trust me.
Yeah.
What's
it's a reflection of the person. It's a reflection of my personality too. It's like I have antiques in there. Everybody on this panel has their own personality, and if they bring it to the restaurant, that can pull people in, right? So yeah, that's really important.
Can I ask Julio a question, please?
Sure.
Oh, okay. Julio, there's been a lot of changes of COVID and supply chain logistics. What do you see as the future of prices for food?
I honestly, if we're talking logistically and the supply chain, we have not begun to see what it's going to end up costing. Over the road is going to, by 2030, be all electric in California. I don't, politics aside, that's a trend. We're building more and more electric vehicles with the infrastructure bill. To refuel, to recharge those electric trucks, to redo the whole weight scale, everything is going to change. I would literally have to say that in the next 7 to 10 years, we're looking at increasingly more expensive over the road freight. This is why I invest so much in Central and South America, because ocean freights are still pretty reasonable. So we get ocean freights in, we bring shipments in from Central and South America right to Brooklyn, and we're in the Bronx. So we really don't go much over the road. 99% of the trip is in the ocean. I go to those meetings with those big freight, ocean freight companies, and they're looking for booms in the next 7 to 10 years, which means that the trucking industry is going to really increase.
So in some, we should be prepared for a greater.
Don't expect too much stuff from California. Put it that way. Don't expect your romaine from California or your mescaline from California. Start making plans to buy in other places. Canada is putting a ton of greenhouses. Even locally, we're putting a ton of greenhouses. We're trying to fill in that gap because California is going to be a thing of the past.
But overall costs are going to go up a lot, you're saying?
If you're trucking onions from Idaho to New York, you're going to pay double in 7 to 10 years.
We're not going to ever go back to normal, especially in the restaurant industry. We're going to have, they like to throw that term around, the new normal. And I think we're starting to figure out what the new normal is. And like you said, there's no playbook to it. So I think these discussions are a great way for everybody to kind of learn from each other and maybe start to write a playbook, hopefully.
Okay. Jimmy.
If I can make a positive, lasting impression, and not to sound like corny or anything like that, kumbaya, but if I can actually make a lasting, positive impression on people who stop in the restaurant and they can just remember that experience, and it's like a diamond in the rough out of all of this craziness that's going on, then I've done my job. That's all I'm really looking for. People go in there, they have a good experience, and it's a really good impression. You know, that's all I really ask for. They have a good time.
Okay. Julio.
One of the things we do at Produce Experience is we offer free consultation for existing customers and prospective customers. And I think that the lasting impression that I've had, or I will have in the restaurant industry, is that I know where we're heading in the produce end. I can help young restaurateurs like Jimmy look over what he's paying. I can give suggestions as to the best vendors, the safest vendors. So I figured, that if I can help the restaurant industry, it will trickle down into the vendor and distributor. So I think that's my contribution.
Okay, my turn.
Yeah,
I
your
would take what I learned from Joyce today, which is it's time to go back to some of the basics, like great entertainment to make it fun. I would go back to what Jimmy said and talk about who am I and what's the experience that I want people to have when they walk into my restaurant. Then I'd call Julio and I'd find out maybe how do I go from a traditional French fry to a yucca fry or something different. Then I would call Eddie and say, Eddie, I'm working with Cisco right now. I'm working with US Foods right now. I don't like the attitude. I don't like the approach. What can I do to save money and be efficient? And then I do what Peter always tells me, which is go stand by the dishwasher and watch what's being thrown away. And I think if I did that, I'd be on my way to I'd have a true recipe for success.
Okay. All right. Well, that's it. I have nothing else to say.
Thanks,
I
guys.
said it all. Listen, we'll be back again in 2 weeks. And I look forward to having you all here again. And I just want to thank you for you being here today and participating. And I only have 2 more things to say. Everybody, stay positive, test negative, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye now.
Amen. Thanks, guys.